Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Hey guys, real quick, before we jump into the episode, I need you to do the 3 S's for me. What is that? First of all, I need you to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss an episode of our podcast. Number 2, I need you to share it with your family and friends. Don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone else. Lastly, I need you to say something. Leave us a comment. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you want to see from us, what you like, what you don't like. We are open to your suggestions. We want to know everything that you want to let us know about the podcast. All right. Now, get back to the episode. All right. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Earnest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is healed, whole, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you listen, like, subscribe, and share to our podcast on all of our social media platforms. Also, make sure you guys are checking us out on our YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network, where not only will you find the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, but you will also find our sister podcast, which is the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. So make sure you guys go there again at Deal to Heal Podcasting Network in order to check us out on our new YouTube channel. Also, our product of the week, as you guys know, we are a self-sustained podcast, and the way that we stay on the air is by bringing you amazing products for you to purchase. And our product of the week is our Purpose Journal and our Purpose Planner, because I believe we are to journal where we've been in order to keep track of where we've been and where we are, as well as plan for our future. So you guys can get your copy of our Purpose Journal and our Purpose Planner on Amazon. The links are in the description. And please make sure you go down below and check out all the information that's in the description, because there is some great information there. But today, just like any other day, we are blessed with the guest, Mr. Aaron Williams. How you doing, sir?
Let's go. Man, I'm blessed, bro. And I just want to say, thank you for having me on the podcast. This episode 210.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So first of all, let me say thank you for being here, because you could have been anywhere else with anyone else, but you're here with me and my listeners. We definitely appreciate it. So Aaron, we're going to jump right in this thing, man. Tell us, do me a favor, introduce yourself to our audience and let us know a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what you do.
Man, so Aaron Williams, right? I'm a dad, of 3, 6-year-old, 5-year-old, and a 1-year-old. I'm a husband. I'm a man of faith. Let me say that. And, I'm a associate licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm also a mental health director of a non-for-profit organization called Champs Male Mentoring. Born and raised in Chicago kid through and through.
Yeah, love it. Let me go back one question. You said you were a father of 3. Any daughters?
Yeah, my first baby girl, the 6-year-old, Adaya. That's my heart.
All right, cool. So whenever I have another girl dad on, because as you know myself, I'm a girl dad as well. I ask them 2 questions. So I'm gonna ask you the same 2 questions. Number 1, what does it mean for you to be a girl dad? And then number 2, what is something that your daughter has taught you?
Man, that's powerful. For me, being a girl dad means, the first word to come up to me is first. I'm the first male in her life to show her how she should be treated, right? I'm the first person first meal in her life to show her how to be loved. Right? I'm the first meal in her life to show her what empathy and compassion looks like. So for me, the word first, and that's a big responsibility when you're the first at anything. And then hit me with the second question.
What is something that your daughter has taught you?
Yeah, she has taught me, going back to that first word, leadership, right? Like I have to be aware. I have to understand how to communicate with her. I have to understand how to be patient. Um, I have to understand how to lead. And so all of those dynamics help with my leadership and what I do in general and in the outside world.
All right, all right. I love it. I love it. So I always ask that, and I don't know why I didn't ask that, why I didn't know that information before. Because we are connected outside of the podcast, and I didn't know you had 3 kids. I don't know why I didn't know that.
Yeah,
But
I'm always busy, man. I'm always busy.
so yeah, all right. So let's go back, Aaron. Right. So I want to go back in your story a little bit, um, because you mentioned that you are a therapist, right?
Yeah.
And so growing up in Chicago, which I am from as well, you know, uh, that's a different occupation for us, right? And growing up in Chicago, that's a different um, occupation, than we usually grow up, deciding to be, right? So let's go back into even part back a little bit into your childhood of who was Aaron, growing up. What was your experiences growing up? And then what was that thing that made you want to be a therapist out of, all the things, especially come from Chicago? You got athletes, you got rappers, all those things. But Aaron decided to be a therapist. So let's go back into that story. Tell us a little bit about, just your upbringing and what made you decide to go that route.
Man, how long we gonna be on here? Cause that's deep, right?
Well, let's
um,
let's just go with it and we'll see
yeah,
what happens.
I got you. So this is good. Like I'm always talking to people about transitions and the importance of your transition. So I'll say this and then I'll go back. Essentially, all of my situations and transitions allowed me to be where I'm at today as a therapist. So, as a kid, right, I have a unique story. Being born and raised in Chicago, my father was 14, my mother was 11 when she had me. So, you know, I was essentially raised by babies, but really by my grandparents, right? Well, my grandmother, right? And that was a unique experience. Being in a single parent family household, with my mother and my grandmother, and then my uncle who had an intellectual disability ability. So had to grow up a little faster. I had to pick up on things quicker. I had to be aware of my surroundings. But I always had this burning sensation, you know, to help people. I always had this innate ability that like of service. Like ever since a little kid, I wrote in a book when I was a child, like I want to help. I gave a note to my mom and I said I want to help a whole bunch of people and I want to open up a center. But I didn't know I was a kid. I just knew that I wanted to help people. And I think maybe a lot of it essentially comes from being around, people who needed help, like my
Yeah.
uncle who was dealing with his disability. Um, so that really probably impacted me a lot as a child. And then just from there, growing up, right, like being in the city, I, I was blessed to get opportunity to at some point in time to experience the south suburb of Chicago, right? Went to school out there for a little bit, so I got some exposure, um, and that helped take me to college, right? And so when I went to college, I went to college for something totally different than what I have my degree in now. I went to college for, uh, I got my BA, I got my undergrad in business management. And it was interesting because the first thing I wanted to go into was sociology, but I had somebody like a mentor to me tell me, no, go to business. And I knew it wasn't in my heart, but I ended up switching my whole, you know, major to business. So I got my degree in business. And from there, I was on this journey, right? Like I was on this journey. Um, you know, met my wife in college. Definitely got to say that. That was the dopest thing about going to college, right? Like, me and my wife, we have our three children together, been together since 18. So, that's an amazing story in itself. But after college, man, like, I was on a path of searching what my purpose was. And I was in multiple different jobs that, led me to now.
Yeah, and so let's talk about the therapist, being a therapist a little bit, because you mentioned about being a man of faith, and even myself, growing up in the church, and especially in our communities. First of all, being in our community and then growing up, in the church is almost like, it was Jesus and then it was therapy. You know what I mean? It's almost like you had to choose one or the other.
Yeah.
And me myself, definitely, I'm a advocate of both together, because the Bible says natural and spiritual, and then that's exactly what that is. You got your natural, therapist to kind of help you on your natural man, and then you got your spiritual man as well. And we are multi beings, so we have to hit it from both sides. But how was your experience growing up, or not necessarily growing up because you was a young adult then, but even now as being a African American therapist and talking to us in our communities and being able to, how has that reception been? I think it's probably a little bit more easier now, but definitely when I was growing up, it was like, what? You ain't even talking about going to a therapist, let alone talking about being one. So how's that experience been, just becoming who you are now as a therapist?
Yeah, that's a strong question. And I think, to go back a little bit more, I think my experiences help shape um my, what's the right word? I want to say grit or passion for the work. So it's still a lot of people who, don't know what therapy is, you know, you know, have maybe some biases against therapy. Um, it's still so much education that needs to be, poured out or given to people so they can make better informed decisions about therapy. But let me go back for a second. I think, being a Chicago police officer before I became a therapist, um, I was able to see a lot of trauma. I was in a lot of situations where I saw the importance of mental health, where I saw the importance of people processing their emotions and feelings. And so I say that because I always was the type of person that didn't want to complain about the problem and wanted to be using, the term in Chicago for officer, be the change, right? Um, and I knew that being a black police officer in Chicago was like, a big thing, right? in itself, but I saw a need. And then I also saw a need within the lack of black male therapists. And so I said, man, who do people go to when they want somebody that looked like them?
Mhm.
And I wanted that person to be me. So to just directly answer your question, I always align myself with that thought process, that even when I get people who are confused about therapy or have pushback on it, I just invite them. I just try to educate. I just try to empower, right? I don't push it on anybody because for so long and so many years, like you just said, therapy was taboo. It
Yeah.
was like, just go to church, go read the Bible, that's it, right? And so now that times are changing, we still got a long way to go, But I think mental health is more accepted now,
Yeah.
and it allows me to kind of like really be um, of assistance and a blessing to people.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to hit on something because you didn't say that when you was introducing yourself a little bit about being a Chicago police officer. One thing to be a police officer, you know what I'm saying? Because when I was younger, I did have, I did want to become a police officer. It just changed as I got older because I was got more into construction. Uh, but I wanted to be a police officer. So how was that being a police officer? Because you kind of jumped right over that for
Yeah,
a
I
second.
mean,
But how was that experience? And even the same question, I guess, will be along those same lines of growing up. We grow up playing cops and robbers. You know what I'm saying, in the city. You know what I mean, and it's like nobody really wanted to be the cop. And even though, like I said, I grew up with in my heart, I wanted to be a police officer. Um, but I don't think it wasn't always even accepted, even that role. Especially as you get older and your friends get into different things in the streets. You know what I mean? Then it's like, okay, but my guy right here, this is my guy I grew up with, but he's a cop now. You know what I'm saying? So how was that experience?
yeah, difficult. Like that experience was difficult, but I think, and I wasn't trying to skip over it, right? I think like if I just kind of go back to all of my careers before I became a therapist, they all shaped me for this moment, right? But specifically around being a police officer, it was difficult because I have such a big heart for the community, and going out there and trying to serve the community the right way. I know we got some bad officers. We do, right? Let's call it cat a spade a spade. We got some bad officers, but we also have some good officers.
Yeah,
We also have some officers who really want to serve the community, but they get overlooked by the bad ones. And that's the thing that broke my heart and made being a police officer really hard, because I wanted to show up and really support. And a lot of time through that systemic trauma that people have been through, when I showed up, the support wasn't received because it was like, no, you one of them.
yeah,
Right? You a police officer, you a pig, you a whatever, just these derogatory terms, right? And it made it difficult. And so the thing that I pride myself on, and the thing that I pride myself on now, I never allowed other people's thoughts or opinions to change what my purpose was. I knew I was there to help. I never wavered from that. That piece of like when you say, the spiritual side and the humanly side, like the spiritual side, I always said no. I always had something that just God supported me, said, no, 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 no. I know that you're gonna get pushed back, but you there to help. Like you stay in that. And so I say that because even in therapy, I tell people and I really coach people on how are you grounding yourself. That was the way that I was grounding myself. I allowed, my father, God, right, to literally support me in those difficult times. And it was difficult, man. It was hard. Some days I was confused. Some days I was, why they don't understand that I'm trying to help. And I have to remember this is bigger than me, right? We talking about a long journey of abuse. We talking about a long journey of mistrust. And
yeah,
so in order to be a part of any change, you got to understand that it comes with a lot of responsibility and a lot of patience and a lot of grace.
yeah. And I want to touch on that because I can see the uh transition. I want to say transition, but that ain't the word that I want to use. But I can see the common chord, right? Or should I say the common theme, even in your choice of occupations, because it mirrors mine in a sense, right? Definitely growing up in the church and having that same spirit of service and wanting to help people. I remember not too long ago I did a podcast episode as a guest. Was kind of just going back and talking about growing up in church and at that time, at a young age, being made to serve, to go to the nursing homes and the senior citizen homes and things like that, and have service, and check on the people that my grandmother used to always say, those people that's been shed away, who
Mhm.
people forgot about. And
Yeah.
so just growing up with that heart of service that was just bred into me, coming up, and still today just having that same heart, whether it's in ministry or public speaking, or through the podcast, still just having that theme throughout my life of wanting to help people. And I see that even with your story, as you're saying, just like, looking at your home and how you started, and, dealing with your uncle, and helping, always just having that heart to help people. How do you think that purpose, because I would say purpose leaves clues, right? And so I can see the clues, throughout your, even if you're just going by your careers, with the careers that you chose, that you have a purpose to serve and a purpose to help others. So how do you think that purpose was kind of formulated in your mind? You know what I'm saying? To really be like, this is what I'm going to do with my life. Like I'm gonna help people. I know you mentioned that you had the desire early, but where do you think that desire came from?
Yeah, like it's interesting because when I say this, I don't know if a lot of people are going to be able to relate to it, but it's not deep though. I think purpose is literally. I don't mean to just go there, but I had to go there. I think it's really given from my father, right? Like our spiritual father. I really think it's given from God. Let me tell you why. I
Mm-hmm.
think so many people overlook their journey. I think so many people overlook their transitions and the steps that led them to where they are today. Let me go back for a second. When I left college and I came home, because I went three hours away, so I wasn't far. I was at Eastern Illinois University, right? I came home. I was working in um, a facility, homes to take care of people who had intellectual disabilities. So it was like 8 people in a home, right? So I was working for this company. I want to show you I paid attention to my transitions. So I
Mm-hmm.
was working in that company. Okay, I end up going from there to a school that was an alternative school, and so alternative school, for those people who don't know, a kid they go to high school, they get kicked out of that high school, they go to an alternative school. So I was at what you call not even an alternative school. I was at the third option of that, which is the option before you even go to juvenile detention center, or you just done, or you done with school in general.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so those kids who got kicked out of alternative school, they went to this school, right? And I was
Right.
there serving as what you would call a behavioral specialist. I was in a classroom supporting to teachers and helping them with, maybe behaviors, pulling kids out, talking to them, processing with them. That was my second job out of college. Let me go again. My next two jobs were in sales, but the type of sales it was healthcare sales. So like I wasn't necessarily enrolling people in the product. I was enrolling them to take care of their health. So I had to go out and market and talk to people about, even though it was a sales aspect because I had to bring people in, it was still around servicing them around their health, right? And when you go from those two jobs, then I landed into a police officer. And then the police officer landed me into a therapist. Why is that transition and journey so important that I named that? Because every piece of the way I was gathering things to allow me to be able to be a therapist. I had empathy from people from the disability homes that I was working with.
Mm-hmm.
I had massive empathy. From the school, I had massive understanding around the needs that were happening with our young people. From the sales job, I saw the difficulties that people were going through with their health because it was healthcare sales. And then from
Mm-hmm.
the police job, it showed me the epidemic, the trauma that was going on in our city around mental health. So I took something from every piece of those jobs that allowed me to actually fulfill my purpose in being a therapist. But so many people overlook when they were working at the McDonald's and what they needed to
Mhm.
gather from that job. So many people overlooked when they were a waiter and what they needed to gather from that job. And so I'm just telling you, like, I think it's important for people to, because this is what I did, my part of my journey, to actually look at, don't be so critical on where you are in that moment. See what you
Yeah,
can gather from that, because it might help you get to your end goal. And so that's essentially how I got to my purpose. I always paid attention to like what was in front of me. I never neglected the next step.
yeah, yeah. I'm glad that you said that because it's literally like I said before you got started. Purpose leaves clues, and you basically just mapped out the clues that was already there in the service that you had and the heart that you had to serve because it was already there in the things that you were doing. And it's one of the things I talk about, when I talk to people about finding their purpose and being able to recognize what their purpose is. Like, it's already there. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like I said, the he's already laid it out. We just have to recognize it. He already laid it out there. And so just like you said, I love hearing your story. And I also did home health care. I did home health care for 10 years. I think a little bit over 10 years. You know what
Wow.
I mean? One of my clients that I had recently passed away after COVID. But I was doing home health care for two brothers, twin brothers, for like, man, over 10 years or so, as well as other people as well. So yeah, that again, but it all leaves clues to,
Yeah.
yeah, it shows your heart when you look back on it, and you're able to say, oh, like you said, I got this from this, and I took this from that, and then you're able to see how it all connects. So I love that. I love that.
And to even add, in the midst of all of that, right? Being a mentor in the city, working for Champs Male Mentoring, being a mentor for 8 years. Now I'm coaching people, right? I'm helping the youth. I'm supporting parents. I'm connecting with community leaders, and I'm connecting with other men in the community. They're showing that they care for the community. So now imagine all of that is shaping my being and who I am. And so I just want to double down, man, to your podcast listeners, and I just want to tell them, like, where you are might be important to get you to where you're going.
Yeah, yeah. And I was just about to go there too. So I'm glad that you even brought that up because that was gonna be my next thing because we are members of the Champs organization, and even more so me, more newer to the organization than you are, should I say? And I actually came up under your leadership in the Calumet City location here in
Yeah,
Chicago.
appreciate
Um,
it.
yeah, yeah. And so let's go back with that because I'll tell you my experience, right? So we have another gentleman who we're both connected to, Marcellus Griffin, and I met Marcellus actually at a podcasting event, right? And we ran into each other at like several podcasting events, and so we started a dialogue, and I was already into the speaking role as a public speaker, and so I talked to him about that, and he mentioned it to me that he was a part of a male mentoring program, which was something that I wanted to do anyway because I had already started um, building my own.
Mm,
And right before COVID, me and another gentleman, we had kind of set everything up, and we was finished to have our first in school uh, mentor program, and then
okay.
COVID hit and shut everything down. So
Wow.
so that was that. But so after when me and Marcellus had this conversation, I was like, one of the things that the big homie Dr. Eric Thomas always says, until you're ready to start your own thing, whatever that is, start your own table, join somebody else's. You know what I
Mm,
mean? And so once he mentioned about Champs, and I was like, yeah, let me check him out. And so eventually he got into Next Level Speakers Academy as well as yourself later on. You know
yep.
what I'm saying? And I got into I joined Champs Male Mentoring Program. Off of talking to him. So that's how I was introduced to Champs and you because you was over the Calumet City
Yep.
location. So tell me a little bit about your story, how you got involved with Champs, and what does Champs mean to you? Because I know my heart just coming in. Because like at the time we were recording this, I think it's only been like a year since I've been involved in Champs, but I know where my heart is with the program and how much I want to serve. But you been already years in. Tell me a little bit about your experience, how you even came to Champs to join it, and then what's that love for and that thing that keeps you serving in that capacity.
Man, beautiful question. I want to just first let your listeners know, Champs Male Mentoring is a uh, organization based, that was started and founded here in Chicago. And the intention and purpose behind it is to help the youth, right? Boys from the age of 11 to really 21, to provide mentorship, to provide guidance and support, right? And this program got started out of the need, right? The
Mhm.
CEO and founder, Vondell Singleton, started in the school system with 5 boys. And now it grew to over 300 across the city from the west side, south side, and then Calumet City. And so mentorship is important in every city, and especially here in Chicago. And so I started with the program about 8 years ago, and literally it stemmed from, I started with the program because I didn't go back to what we were just talking about. I didn't take any step lightly. I had an opportunity, where I connected with a guy in the city. He was, doing mentoring, and I just told him I wanted to help with what he had going on. He was by himself, doing mentoring by himself. And I told him, like, hey, how can I support? He brought me on with him, gave me some mentorship, and I started with like 15 boys, and I took these. I heard about an event, um, where they were giving boys ties and suits. Shout out to Jermaine Anderson, here in Chicago, with his organization, um, you know, and when I took these 15 boys, I saw this organization, man, and this organization, they all had the same colors. They all had matching ties. They were suited and booted. They had mentors, and I was like, whoa, same thought that you just said. I'm like, I like that. I want to be a part of that. Like I'm already trying to do the work.
Yeah,
How can I be a part of something that's bigger than me without having to essentially grow it
yeah,
myself? So I met the CEO and founder, Vondell Singleton, right at that moment at the event. Walked up to him. Ironically, we had a connection because my brother was one of his students at the time. Didn't even know it, which he's now a mentor in the organization. And so I connected with him instantly, and me and him, hit it off. We had a meeting, and long story short, now I'm the mental health director for the organization, and this was over an 8 year period. And so, I jumped on with the squad, and I've been here ever since.
yeah. I love it, man. And like I said, I got introduced to you guys through my sellers, and shout out to Vondale. Hopefully we have him on a podcast soon. We've been talking about it. But shout out to Vondale and even having the vision for what Champs is and what it's turning into, man, because it's definitely growing even more. And like I said, with me only being in a year in, and with my job and everything, I haven't really been able to uh, go head in as much as I want to, but just being around you guys, even more so lately with the meetings that we've been having where all the mentors are getting together
Yep.
and to be able to hear our hearts and how much, it means for us to serve, the young men and everything. And so I'm really glad myself to be a part of Champs. Like I said, shout
Yep.
out to Mondale, man, and shout out to you as well, even in your leadership, coming into the Calumet City location, under you and with the way that you ran that and even now to see your growth just in the time that I've been there to now with this position as the director with the mental health side of it. I think definitely is a major key in the lives of our boys, especially here in Chicago. We have we mentioned about how we grew up with those two different standards, like what I'm saying, because Chicago is a different place because it's so big, right? So you got your family, and I think within every family, if you're not a gang member, you're gang related because you're related to somebody that's in. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? But
yeah,
everybody got one foot in the street and one foot at home almost. You know what I'm saying? If not
yeah.
connected somebody to somebody that is.
No, and that's real, and that's why like it's so important for the mentorship part. I want to shout you out though for a quick second, if I can, because so many men, you know, and I'm specifically talking to your men listeners, right? This applies to you too, ladies. But due to me being in a male mentor organization, I want to talk to the men for a second. Man, I want to shout out you, Ernest, because so many people limit themselves from serving and helping because of the jobs, because of all the real life things that they're experiencing. And all I tell people is, yo, just come to one meeting. It don't have to be with champs. Just go to one event. It don't have to be with champs. If it is, dope, right?
Yeah.
But just go to one volunteer opportunity. Just go to one service opportunity. And that's what you did. You said, yo, let me see what these guys about. Even though your schedule isn't aligned right now, everybody in the organization know where your heart is. And when you can show up, you show up. And so like I think that's super dope because you're not making the excuse that, yo, I'm a dad. Yo, I gotta work. Yo, I'm running a business. Yo, I'm doing a podcast. You're doing all this amazing stuff. And you still like, if I can show up, I'm gonna show up. And you have. And so like kudos to you, bro, because so many people they limit themselves from helping and serving.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because one of the things that I tell people, man, is like when you really find where your heart is, right, and the things that you want to give yourself to, like it's gonna require some sacrifice. You know what I mean? And even more so recently, I've been on working midnight shifts. We've had a couple meetings and stuff like, hey, we got to be there, and I'm like, man, I told y'all, like, look. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be just getting off work. I might have one eye open, what I'm
Yeah,
saying,
and
but
you
I will
showed
be
up.
there. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Yeah, and so, but I think that that's a part of that servitude, that's growing up with. Like, all right, you know, it got to be done. You know what I'm saying? And if it's your heart, you're gonna make the sacrifices to make sure that it gets done. And I don't talk about this a lot, but even when I mentioned about doing the home health care for 10 years. Well, I was doing that through COVID, right? And
mm,
so at the home that we worked at with these two brothers who needed 24-hour care, we had a staff of maybe 10, right? And so we worked around the clock, 10 staff members. When COVID hit, nobody knew what COVID was. And
yeah,
so my clients caught COVID and everybody got scared, to come to work. And so we went from a staff of 10 to a staff of 3. And so there
wow,
were 3 of us that worked for like 2 weeks around the clock to give care to these, people who couldn't take care of themselves. You know what I'm saying? And that was that sacrifice. Like we didn't know what COVID was either.
yeah,
We didn't know how it was going to necessarily affect us, but we knew that we had a better chance of being able to, handle whatever came. And but without our services, they wouldn't be able to survive. And so that was one of those sacrifices that had to be made. Like, all right, so now it's just 3 of us now, and being able to run that. And we did it. We did it. We made it happen. We ran it for like I said, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks with just three people, running this house 24 hours. And also I'm a essential worker at that time too, because I'm in construction. So I was doing home health care and still doing construction
wow,
at the same time.
wow,
You
I
know,
didn't know that. Wow.
but yeah, but still, just go back to what I was saying about there's still 2 things that I'm very passionate about, the building trades and helping people. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that was the sacrifice that had to be made. And so even now with champs, when with my heart of wanting to serve and really wanted to grow myself more, even in the organization. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna have to show up, when I can. And sometimes that takes some sacrifice, and I have to lose some sleep, and all of those things. But I'm like, this is something I want to be a part of, and so I make that sacrifice.
Yeah,
So
and the story behind that, bro, is deep. People miss that though, which is it's a sacrifice to serve, but it's necessary.
mhm.
Even with the Deal to Heal podcast. Like the podcast that we are on right now is about service. You bring people on to help people heal, to give people advice, to like, bro, that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, and I appreciate that, man. And so before we get out of here, Aaron, man, again, I appreciate you being on and coming and tell your story and share with us a little bit. I want you to leave us with a word of advice, information, inspiration, however you feel, and to leave us also with your social media handle so where we can find you and follow you and things of that nature. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to think about that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again for joining in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Make sure you guys are checking me out at my website. This is the dealhealfulfill.org. Again, that's dealhealfulfill.org, which is find out more information about the organization as a whole, whether it's through podcasting, whether it's through workshops that we're doing, things of that nature. But you can go there and find out the information at dealhealfulfill.org. Also, check me out on my new website, my personal website, as a speaker, which is earnestjamesspeakslife.com. As you guys know, I am a professional speaker, and we do speaking engagements and workshops. So I talk a little bit more about a workshop that we have coming up. But yeah, we do speaking engagements and workshops and things of that nature at your school or organization. So make sure you guys go to earnestjamesspeakslife.com to check that out, where you can find out more information about me as a speaker, as well as, book me to come out to facilitate a workshop or for a speaking engagement. Also, ebooks by ejames.com is where my ebooks are located, including an ebook called From Males to Men. We were talking about male mentorship. That ebook was called From Males to Men, which is an ebook that I wrote for young men that's making that transition into manhood. You guys can find that, as well as the core four, because we talked about being girl dads at the top of the podcast. So the core four, which is the core four values that every daughter should get from her father, that ebook is also available there. And that ebook is we discuss on the Girl Dad Discussions podcast as well. So you guys can check that out at ebooksbyejames.com. Also, our inspirational t-shirt line at deal2healtees.com. That's deal, the number 2, healtees.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tee and be inspired all day. That is our tagline. You guys can go to deal, the number 2, healtees.com to check out our inspirational t-shirt lines, which also we have our podcast merch, which is our t-shirts with our podcast logos on it. One for the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, and also one for the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. And last but not least, over the last couple of years, I've been blessed to be a part of an organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And what we do, we have free virtual workshops bi-monthly talking about the topic of forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, forgiveness of the world, just forgiveness as a whole, which I believe is a very important topic that we often overlook sometime in our lives. And so the virtual workshops are absolutely free, but the information is priceless. And we do this bi-monthly. So whenever you're listening to this episode, either one just ended or there's one coming up with the free virtual workshop. So you can go to forgivenessmission.com in order to sign up for our next free workshop, or you can go to Eventbrite and look up the Forgiveness Workshop sponsored by the Forgiveness Mission. Again, that's forgivenessmission.com to sign up for our free virtual workshop. So again, Aaron, I want to say thank you so very much for being on. Thank you for sharing your story, man. Looking to have you on again, and definitely want to have you on the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, so we can talk about raising these young queens. Definitely want to hear that story. So again, I appreciate you being on. I want you to have the last word, so the floor is yours.
Yeah, man. First, I want to say thank you to you once again. This was an amazing experience. To your listeners, I want to give you, 3 takeaways, right? To the listeners, thinking about deal, heal, and fulfill, right? Deal with the problem by stepping in it. You won't alleviate the problem by sitting back and waiting. If you see a need, fill it, right? That's what I'm doing. That's what I want you to take away from my story. Every time I saw a need, I didn't complain about the problem. I dealt with the problem, and I'm stepping in it. Personally, for my personal life, I didn't wait. I didn't hope. I didn't just pray. I went out to go get the resources. That's the first thing. Second thing, healing with the problem. Healing is a journey. Find the resources to help you heal, and that might mean go to therapy. In the Bible, I always talk about having resources. I always talk about having counsel, right? Counsel can look different for many different people. If it's not therapy, get a mentor, right? If it's not mentorship, go to a place that can help you heal, right? But go towards it. Go forward, right? Last but not least, right? You fulfill your purpose by aligning with other people who are in their purpose, right? So if you confused about what your purpose look like, if you don't know how to do it, if you like, Aaron, I heard you say all these steps and all these transitions, but I don't know how to connect it. I don't know how to piece it together. What I didn't tell you is I sat with a mentor for a year. And when I sat with that mentor for a year, it gave me clarity on my purpose. So you deal with the problem by stepping in it. You heal from the problem by going to go actually get the resources to help you heal. And you fulfill your purpose by getting around other people who are in their purpose. So that's my time. You can Aaron Williams on all social media, on Instagram, Aaron_the_therapist, right? Facebook, Aaron Williams. Keep listening to this podcast. Keep dealing with your problem. Keep healing from your problem, and keep fulfilling your purpose.
All right. We can't end it no better than that. To my listeners, thank you guys for tuning in once again to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, where our mission is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Until next time, you guys be blessed. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tee and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.